Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the MSU podcast. Today is our first men's panel. Today, we're talking about the pornography addiction. I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And I'm Aaron Levine.
And I'm Alejandro Vela.
And I'm Chad Emmerich.
And today, as I mentioned, we're talking about pornography addiction. So last night, I was watching one of my favorite films as a kid, The Girl Next Door. I remember being a teen and finding this film, and it was about a young guy who's in high school, and next door moves in a pornography actress, I guess you could call it that, star, and he falls in love with her, and it's about their story. And when I was young, it was very arousing. It would turn me on, this film. Like the whole thing was erotic and exciting for me. But last night when I was watching this, all I could feel was a lot of pain from the woman, a lot of sadness. I could see how her self-worth was very low, and it was really disturbing me. I was feeling disgusted in certain ways that the old version of me found this so attractive. And over the course of the last year, I've really been diving into this work, which has allowed me to heal the parts of myself, the shame, the guilt, which has led to the behaviors of being addicted to porn. And this isn't something that's talked a lot in society, which is why I wanted to bring it up today with 3 other certified mystical life coaches at MSU. I know for me, I have been definitely addicted to porn for the last probably 18 years, since I was 12, since I first saw it. Way too young to be accessing material like this, and it's rampant in society. We live in such a world of connection right now with the internet, and kids have way too much access to this thing, which is definitely destroying our society and our view of what a woman really is. So I just want to open, that's my little intro that I wanted to start off with, for someone else to start sharing about their experiences with porn addiction and where they're at now and where they would like to go to.
I want to add that I've seen that film as well. I definitely recognize it. It is hypersexualized. And as you said, to watch now and to see, from a woman's point of view and what she's going through, it's a definitely different perspective after you've done the work.
Yes, to say the least. And I would also add, I personally don't see it as much of a coincidence that we do have this hypersexualized, Hollywood movie system. It seems to condition us to some extent to just kind of be used to that, right? And not saying it's nefarious or on purpose or anything, but regardless what the motivations are, it's there. And by the time you're old enough, in your case, Danny, 12, when I was 10 or 11 or something, seeing porn for the first time, it was, you were ready to see it. All these movies, for me, it was like American Pie was one I grew up watching. It was normalized, and it was a cool thing. And like in that movie, this guy, I don't know, 16, 15 something, he's a virgin, and he's going to have sex with this girl from his class, and he puts his webcam on to stream to the internet to his friends, right? Making porn as an underage person, like, it's glorified in this movie, and like his friends are excited because it's this because it's normalized, and this is like an okay thing to do. And looking back on that movie myself, I haven't gone back and rewatched it, but just imagining the plot, it sounds somewhat similar to This Girl Next Door, where it's just amazing when you look back and what you were exposed to at a young age, because I don't think any of that's normal, but it starts putting those ideas in our head as if they are, and as if everyone is living like that.
Yeah, for sure. It really is normal. And when we really zoom out and have a look about what's going on in society, I just think about, like, imagine if you were an alien coming to this planet and you see the way that we're treating women and sex, this sacred act. An interesting thing was brought up to me the other day, how sex can be the most magical, godlike, connecting experience with a woman. It's arguably one of the most mystical, magical things that we can experience in this life as a human being. But it can also be rape. It can also be, you know, like adults molesting children. It can be, and it pulls all the sacredness, all the magic right out of it. And it's really interesting how what we see in society, I remember the statistic that porn receives more traffic than all of social media combined. That was in the book Unwanted by Jay Stringer. Amazing book. That's one of the books that we have to read in the relationship course, and it really opened my eyes to how addicted our society is to porn and the different types and what they can mean. And for me, I've tried to go through various periods of my life where I forced myself to stop, and always what happens when I force is only a matter of time that I end up coming back and doing it again, because instead of healing, which is more opening, I was trying to force myself to stop doing something, and it never works, because, well, it maybe can work occasionally, but for the most part what I've experienced in my life is that whenever I force, whenever I'm in my masculine trying to make sure I don't do something, inevitably down the line I will do that eventually. And porn is 100% example for me. And now that I've able to go in and heal the parts of me that I felt shame for, now these parts are definitely vibrating at a certain frequency, same kind of frequency that are vibrating that attracts you to something like porn. And I'd never even thought about it like this until this past year. I never even like conceptualized the idea that, oh, well, the reason why I'm addicted to this thing, it's very similar with alcohol, is because there's a part of me that doesn't feel like I'm worthy. And so I can lower myself to do these liminal activities, these things which I don't really want to do, but I'm feeling like I'm drawn to it energetically. There's a pull there. And what I've experienced, and I'd love everyone else to touch on this, is now that I'm healing those parts of me, the pull, when I go on my computer now, I don't feel that pull to as much. Maybe occasionally I feel it now and again, but the pull isn't as strong to go towards something like porn.
Danny, what I'd like to ask you when you were covering that, what do you remember the moment that you started to question that? You said in the last year or so something, sparked inside to start to question why you were doing that and where it was coming from.
Yeah, it was part of the relationship course that we did, and it was bringing up the fact that these two big emotions, shame and guilt, create a lot of unworthiness in our lives. And when we have that energy vibrating within us, then when we're attracted energetically to other things that vibrate at that level. And it was through doing this course with Rachel, the relationship certification, I realized that there was parts of me that were still there. And the only way that I was going to move past something like this was to be completely honest about what it was that I was experiencing. So at the time I was, and I still am, talking to an amazing, I'm with an amazing lady. And I brought all these things up to her. It was about parts of my past that, and I never understood why I was attracted to ladyboy porn. I was attracted to like she-male porn, and it was so bad. I never even wanted to look at it and write it in my journal. I was so ashamed for feeling this.
Mm-hmm.
And then parts of like in the past, using prostitution in my younger years, and like these parts of me, I didn't even want to talk about, and I felt so much shame for, and it led back to my childhood, like feeling sexual thoughts about other men, and then not wanting to like feel that. And so then my dad casting a lot of shame on me for, I never explicitly said that to him, but he was very homophobic. So I would have to like suppress myself, and not speak my truth. And that caused a lot of harbored shame, and then a lot of unworthiness as well around love, a lot of unworthiness around who I was as a person. I'm just opening up my throat chakra and actually starting to talk about this with my partner now. And she received it in such an amazing, open way. And just that started just speaking about it started the healing journey for me. And then since then, going into it and alchemizing the shame that was there for having these thoughts and feelings when I was a kid, working through the shame allowed me to come back to a place of love. And now when I'm confronted with a film like The Girl Next Door, instead of me, oh, that's erotic, instead of it vibrating inside of me, these parts that were definitely at the same level, what I see now, and I look with empathy and compassion, and I'm like, wow, I feel bad that this sacred gift is being given away, and that something must have happened to this poor woman for her to do this, to lower her worth, her sacredness so much that she has to perform these sacred acts, sexual acts on camera. And it's been a huge transformation, huge. Yeah.
That's amazing. Great to have a conversation with someone who is understanding and willing to have that conversation with you, an open heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it's difficult. And thank you very much, everyone, for who's listening, and for you guys for receiving, because these aren't easy things for me to talk about. These are just talking about it is adding to the healing of the shame that I still feel for having this part of me. So I just want to say thank you for receiving as well, James.
Absolutely.
And I can greatly identify with the whole just actually talking about it. I'm in a newer relationship as well, and it's been something my whole life, right? Like there's this normalized porn, and we kind of know, everyone kind of talks about it. Everyone knows, like their friends are all looking. It's one of those things. Like for me, I would hop on my dad's computer as a kid, and like some pages would be left open or something. And it was just like, oh, okay, so this thing I'm told not to by even these adults, like, oh, even they're doing it. And you kind of see it as a kid. And so being able to speak with it to my partner, and for me, having been exposed to porn at such a young age, with no direction, right? Like it was just, oh, there's a computer in the house, and we had the 56K dial up. You could spend 20 minutes waiting for like a single photo to load, but as a 10, 11-year-old, it was worth it. And or thought it was. Looking back on it now, I kind of wish I didn't. But being able to actually speak about it, and for me, porn being the first place I was exposed to it, you see men with huge dicks. You see all of these, I don't know, kind of stereotypical people that we expect to see in porn that look great. Everything is, the biggest whatever. And you start comparing yourself to that, and it starts giving you those feelings of guilt and shame, like you were talking about, Danny. And for me, like some of the unworthiness came there because I'm comparing myself to this thing which is not real, like being 12 years old comparing myself to some 20-year-old dude on a porn. And speaking to my partner about it, it just changed so much because I don't like admitting this, and like you're saying, Danny, this is a hard thing to talk about, but I can't get, the porn pops into my head even when I'm intimate with a woman, and it's something that I don't want to go back to, but it kind of, it makes sense in the sense of my brain just sees those as memories. It just goes back there. They're not healthy. I'm comparing what's going on in my own life to it, and it's bringing up even more of those programs, even more of that guilt and shame, and it hurts the other person as well when, especially if I'm not able to talk about it, or if I'm not able to be honest about what comes into my head or about how it's affecting how I feel with women. And I think one of the other things, I don't know if we necessarily need to get into it, but just imagining, it took a while for me to see one little photo when I was growing up, and my friends and I would go to the bookstore and steal magazines and stuff. But nowadays, kids with, high definition cell phone watching anything, it just really, I don't know if frightens is the right word, but just thinking about a 10-year-old being exposed to what, the internet has is, what's that going to do for the future generations?
Aaron, something you brought up there that really struck me, the comparison, right? How if you're having an intimate moment, you're still running that through your mind and comparing yourself, and how that not only degrades you, comparing yourself to others, and what that does to yourself and your performance and your ability to stay present, and then also what it's doing to your partner, because you are not there with them any longer. You are now inside your head, and you're not an active, present participant, and you're taking away from both experiences.
And the scary part to me is how unconscious it is, and how ingrained. And again, when porn is the introduction to this world of intimacy and sex and eroticism, it's that comparison. And it's like, how could that be healthy? There's this curated image, this thing that is meant to drive clicks, and we can get into some of the stuff Rachel says about porn, where it does really start from a violent place. And I know all of us going down this road of porn, especially those, I'm 34 or 33, something like that. And yeah, I forget sometimes. And it's just, our generation, my generation, those just younger and older than I, how can we divorce ourselves from that? Again, when it's in the Hollywood movies, then it's in the porn, it's just always there. Yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point.
Oh, ramble away. One of the things you mentioned earlier that really triggered a memory, I remember being at school when I was 11 years old, and some girl came up to me and was like, how big's your penis? And I remember the shame that I felt. And I can't remember what I said. At that time, it was like 4 or 5, it's like 5 inches. And it's just like, wow. And then I realized, and it wasn't at that age. And I remember just feeling so much shame. And the comparison, as you guys mentioned, the comparison that I would make when I would watch this, and the massive penises. And then the 11-year-old me is like, well, that's not what I've got. I don't think I'm ever going to be like that. I'm not worthy of a woman.
Yeah, how could I ever satisfy a woman when that's what satisfying a woman is? That's what society is telling me it is.
Yeah.
That's what that movie or that porn is.
And then that brings up the next point, which is what we see in porn is like this way over the top acting of a woman screaming at the top of a voice. And my experiences with getting really intimate with a woman, it's not quite like that. And when I've really gone deep with a woman and really touched a place of true magic, it's not really loud. It's sensual. It's intimate. It's connection. It's staring into each other's eyes. It's seeing the whole universe opening up in their eyes as you're going deeper and deeper into the dark cave of their consciousness.
And they can't show that on the porn, right? There's no way to. Yeah, not that they would if they could.
And the 11-year-old me is thinking, I've got to just go as fast as I can and make her scream as much as possible. And if I do that, I am a man and I am worthy. And from that place, then I can get all the bitches, and that's the idea that we have as men in our society is the more. I hate that word. I hate even listening to music that talks about it. Rap music often talks about, bitches, and I can't do it because it completely degrades the divinity of a woman. It completely degrades them to a level that, they're a man's property and they should be showing up like this. And it's really painful for me now to look at society and see all that. And we've got a lot of collective healing that we have to do. And I'm hoping that conversations like this will start to bring things to the surface and start to open up this collective healing that we have to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, having the conversation is sometimes the hardest part. Starting it and showing that it's okay to talk about these things, and this is what men do talk about amongst each other, and it's okay. to review what issues you've had, what's coming up for you. You and your partner, as you said, Aaron, right? If you're in the moment and we're losing touch with ourselves and our partners in those moments, these are things to talk about and see what's happening for us and what we have in common, what is part of society versus our individual experience and past. Like for me, I wanted to share my experience on how pornography started. This was early age. My parents had a channel that was similar to HBO, so sneaking in those channels. And this is 5, something like that. And then later on, it was dirty magazines and a tree house out in somebody's backyard, or finding a great grandfather's stash, which led to some of those movies that were coming out in the 90s and whatnot, the hypersexualized movies, and then finally video pornography in college. But the same thing was happening to me, the comparison, the thinking that this is what it looks like. Danny, what you alluded to with when you have a sensual experience, it is not like that in my experience either, right? There is a deeper connection. It is not the go as fast as you can and see how loud everyone can get. But it's okay for us to sit down and talk about this and see what it looks like for one another and what it was like to tear ourselves away from the pornography and the Hollywood styling or stylization that they give it.
And on the other side, I've definitely been with women that have watched pornography, thought that this is how they're supposed to act.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could feel, I'm like, what are you doing right now? And I could tell what they were doing. They'd seen a video of what they are supposed to do. And just like us, they create expectations of, oh, this is how I need to show up. This is how I need to perform. And then they inauthentically do a little like acting thing, thinking that, oh, this is what a man wants. And if you're a woman and listening to this, I'll tell you right now, it's not what a man wants. It might be what a wounded man wants. Mm-hmm. It might be what a child wants, but a real man, a man that's emotionally mature, wants depth of connection.
Well said.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Like as you said, you can sense it or you can tell, and especially after you've done some work, like where that's coming from and that wounded place that they're coming from in order to please a wounded man.
And I can say with my partner, she can tell when I'm not present, to use your vocabulary from earlier, Chad. I don't think I really understood what that word meant until I've been really diving into this work. But this is something where, I don't think any women I might have been with in the past could really sense this stuff. Maybe they just weren't on that level of awareness. I'm not trying to put anyone down. I was not at that level of awareness to be able to sense this either. But at least with my partner now, she can 100% tell when I am not present in the moment. And that is not what she is desiring, right? And that's what this pornography kind of allows us to normalize, right? Like we're talking about just normalizing. We see it everywhere, but what else and how else does it normalize? And it normalizes, I think, the psychology and how I am actually showing up in a nonverbal way with that partner, and these energies that we're exchanging, these subtle energies, however we want to term it, that can be felt, that are there, but that most of the world doesn't seem to acknowledge in our daily lives. But we can sense these things, and there is something there, and it is not modeled in all of this Hollywood and all of this porn and stuff. And, not only do we have arguably a wrong model, I don't want to just say it's wrong, but it seems to be very wrong, but maybe it's part of what's helping us wake up and have these discussions. So maybe for better or for worse, it was needed. I don't like if it was needed, if you know what I'm saying. But regardless, that's why we're here talking about this. And I don't know. I just think this is very, very powerful. I imagine if as a kid I was exposed to a conversation like this as opposed to some porn magazines, and
by accident. You get introduced by accident, not purposefully and carefully and led. Alejandro, what was your experience?
Yeah, even just with this podcast and this conversation, bringing up a lot in me. I consider myself a very vulnerable man, but with all the stories that you guys have shared and the stories that are coming to mind, it's like, oh, fuck. Whew, these guys are being really vulnerable, and I could feel this resistance in my throat to want to share. So just going back to that original point of, this is difficult shit to talk about, but yeah, definitely I experienced within the last year for the first time, while being intimate with a partner, that my partner stopped me right in the middle, and she said, "Could we be here together?
Mm.
Can we not have a goal for like what we're doing? Like, you don't have to come, I don't have to come, but can we just be here together?" This was in the
That gave
middle
me
of
chills.
Yeah, what was that like?
in the middle of intercourse. It was fucking
That's
triggering as
powerful.
fuck. It was triggering as fuck. It hurt me. It hurt me.
Oh,
I'm like,
mm.
I took a pause and I just felt my entire body like, the mental programs that were running when that happened was like, who the fuck does this bitch think she is?
You
Like,
took
that's
it as a
where
criticism.
I took it as a criticism. Like,
Yeah,
what do
I've
you
never seen
mean?
that in a porno. Women don't stop and say that.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm good at this shit. I've been, like
Oh.
going into the ego of I know what I'm doing, but I felt very triggered. But I took the pause. I knew she was coming from a place of love, and I'm super grateful that she did that, and she called me out on it, because since that experience, I was able to really see like, wow, most of my life I've been having intercourse while being in my fucking head, never really being fully present with the person. And going back to what Danny said, it's the intimacy, right? The looking in the eyes of being gentle with one another, being connected throughout the entire time, that creates such a beautiful, sacred, energetic exchange, right? So yeah, that was one of my experiences. And I just wanted to circle back. When I started, I remember, like Aaron said, it being glorified, right? Pornography being glorified, and having more sexual partners and having all your bitches. It's something that was glorified. And I remember in middle school being around a group of slightly older young boys than myself, and they were all talking about their sexual experiences. And then the spotlight came to me, and what about you, Alejandro? And I was like, oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, I had sex this past New Year's when I was visiting a cousin, and there was some friends, and so it was from that moment on that I remember feeling this pressure to have sex, to have partners with me. How am I going to be with someone and not have the experience? So I remember having a lot of pressure that I have to be doing this. Everyone else is doing it.
Absolutely, that brought up a lot for me in the idea of being like picked on if you haven't been laid in a while, like in a fraternity environment or a high school. Like if you ain't doing that, you ain't doing nothing. It's what it seems like, right? Like that is your primary purpose and of most importance, and what you're judged by with the people you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, with that, I think what was triggering for me, that I'm like, no, I can't share this. No, I can hold that to myself. But I feel like it's coming up for a reason. So with that pressure, with that guilt, right, that I carried, it was in about 10th grade, and everyone around me was having sex. And if you weren't having sex, then there's something wrong with you. So having this pressure during that transition from 9th to 10th grade, I was in Mexico, and again, going back to this pressure, over there prostitution is a lot more common. You see it everywhere. You see
Mhm.
teenage girls in the middle of the day on a Tuesday afternoon. There's places where you can see prostitutes. And so the friends that I had in Mexico, I told them what I wanted to do, and they were able to assist me in that. So my first time having sex with a woman was with a prostitute in Mexico. And a big part of that was because I was I felt like such a loser for being 15 and not having sex yet. I'm like, I have to do this. I have to get this experience. And that is something that I probably never shared with many people outside of the MSU container, because I carried a lot of guilt and shame, and I would often lie to my partners. And every time that question would come about, when was your first time? How was your experience? I would always lie because of the guilt and shame that I
Wow.
had around that.
Have you healed much of that guilt and shame now, or is it something that you can still feel within you?
I feel like I've definitely healed a lot of that guilt and shame, especially with prostitutes. But as I've seen, there's definitely still layers to it.
I'm sure even talking about it now is going to open something up. I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, a wave of it might come through, because when we use our voice, it does allow for the healing journey to really continue or begin or open up. So thank you so much for your vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah,
thank you.
that's extremely powerful. I mean, it's it hits on all the points that we were talking about, right? You felt this certain way, and it's kind of society. I don't even know the right word. Not persuading you, but it's society allowing you to, like, you're supposed to feel this way. You're supposed to do these things, and your friends aren't sitting there thinking that in their head. Oh, we got to make Alejandro feel bad. He's not doing what society's doing, but like that's how it ends up coming out. And I've felt these things before too, about in high school discussing with friends. They're asking, "Oh, you having sex with your girlfriend? You doing this, that, or the other?" And it shouldn't matter, but if you say the wrong answer, the opposite of what they're expecting, then you're seen as something different. You're made fun of, teased, whatever the hell. And for me, the first time when I lost my virginity was in 10th grade in high school. So I don't know, around the age there you're talking about, Alejandro, 13, 14, 15, something like that. And I still haven't gone back and really worked on this one, but this just popped up when you were saying that. But the girl that I lost my virginity to, she had told me that she was a virgin and that she had never been with anyone. And I found out she lied later. And it was one of these, like, I mean, it doesn't matter looking back on it. She was feeling some sort of social pressure or something, didn't want to admit to me, and I don't know, excited about it. I don't know what I felt at that age, but there was a pang afterwards. There was some sort of something, and it felt weird. Like, why was I lied to about this? Why is this something that we lie about? Why is this something that our friends ask about? And Alejandro, to your point, like, why is the impetus for you, for me, like, why do we lie in response to that? Because we're afraid of being made fun of or whatever. But it's I don't know, it's just crazy how those social pressures affect you. And to my point earlier with these younger people watching porn, like, I felt those pressures at 13, 14, 15. Well, when do those happen now? If you're 10 years old and people are bringing in porn on their cell phones and they're talking about it at recess and stuff, like, I really don't hear anyone talking about it with the kids. And that's the part that really I don't know, kind of frightens me, I guess.
I think that's our place. Isn't that our place?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about right now today, where I was saying that we were never introduced in a healthy way, never had the conversation. It was left to chance on how your children were introduced to these things, or even if you had the conversation, it was a simple kind of like brushed away, like, you know what to do, right? Yeah, Dad, I know what to do. Okay, good enough. Go on your way.
And part of the problem is that, and the men who are teaching us and leading us, they're all addicted to porn.
Yeah.
So of course they're going, "Oh, you're watching porn, son? God, yeah, good lad. Well done. Me too. Kind of thing." Yeah. So to them, it's very accepted because it's part of them. So they're not going to discourage you or kind of like try and show you an elevated way of looking at the world if they're still doing it. And this brings me to the next point that I wanted to talk about, is leadership. And we look at the leaders in society. If we look at like music and arts, a lot of our leadership normally comes from there. It comes from us looking at the celebrities that are in, the spotlight, or the musicians that we really enjoy. And a lot of sex is put in there. Look at the advertising of TV. Sex sells is the quote that everyone says. Well, sex sells. And that's that they're the ones who are, programming us on a societal level and brainwashing us. And the leadership, the people who are really leading and we're following, are not setting the example of an elevated perspective. And that's where at MSU, that's what we're trying to change, because if we're not looking up to the right people and all we're doing is looking up to other people who are idolizing sex, not sex, idolizing the degradation, trying to find the right words here, idolizing the bitches and the way sex is portrayed in media and almost meant like shown that like pornography is a good thing, if that's who we're following, of course we're going to turn out thinking and behaving in the same way. So if you're listening to this as a man, I would really take some hard looks at who you're following, what you're being influenced by, and asking, is this a high level elevated perspective, or is this just something that I'm aimlessly following along to?
Because when you look at all that Hollywood stuff we were talking about earlier, it's I mean, these, you know, I don't want to think that any of these actors or actresses are nefarious in any way, but they're playing along with the game, right? And that's the model for us. And they read the lines and they act the scene, and that's what we see. And it's, yeah, it's modeled, and it's not just the sex; it's the whole lifestyle, like you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go watch any, and I don't like. I'm a huge hip hop fan, but go look and not just hip hop, different types of music, but look how certain things are glorified in certain types of music, getting out of just the acting and stuff. It's all facets of the life, and you know the porn touches on all of that, right? It's, you're supposed to have all this money, the cool cars, you got to have bitches walking around in thongs, like
Exactly.
that's the image, and it goes hand in hand. It's not just the porn's part of it, but it's insidious how, like, it's just that underlayer. No one talks about it, but it's like all those freaking music videos, they're pretty much pornos, right? Like it's
yeah. I remember. Oh, go ahead, Alejandro.
I was just gonna say a song that I took pride in. Every time I listened to it, it would pump me up. I could feel the adrenaline in my body. It was by this rapper. His name was Mike Jones, and he would say, "Back then, hoes didn't want me. Now all them hot hoes are all on me." And it was all about, you know, he was this chubby dude, and girls didn't like him. But now that he has these fancy cars and all the gold chains and all the clothing, that now they all want him. And I resonated with that, being a chubby kid myself. It's like, oh, that's what I have to do. If I can get money, if I can get the fame, then that's when all the bitches and hoes are going to come into my life.
And all my problems are solved because of the solution that's given to me by society, which happens to be ignoring all of the underlying programming and triggers and all. Yeah.
And I guarantee those people who are searching for material wealth and fame, they're not happy. Not on the inside. They're not truly happy with who they are as a person, with the relationships they have with the feminine, with the relationship they have with themselves. And it's sad in a way that our society is addicted to this lifestyle and addicted to porn. Yeah. The final thing I want to bring up is, I touched on it earlier, is the fact that the type of porn that we watch can be an indication for our healing. So for me, there was, as I mentioned, there was this like ladyboy thing, and it was really suppressed and repressed. I didn't want to even look at it. And when I finally did, I realized that it was the part of me that was more like a fluid bisexual that was just so suppressed. So it came out in this, it's okay if she looks like a woman but she has a penis. So like, this is these fantasies that we create in our minds. It doesn't mean we actually want them. Like if we had them, I don't know, because I've not experienced it, but if we actually had what we desire, I don't know in terms of like pornography and sexual attraction, if it actually satisfies us, or if it's just, and this is what I believe it's more of an indication as to what's going on a deeper level of what you still need to heal. And we can elevate and like reach more enlightened states if we look at the type of pornography and type of things that really we're attracted to, because those are just keys. Those are little nuggets. That's a trail to where there's a part of you that is vibrating at a lower level, and that if you went in and found what it was, then you'd be more healed and whole, and you'd have a more blissful, joyous life and peaceful. So that's my experience with it. The other big thing I have is like, I always fantasize like not having control. So being pinned down by a woman, almost being, there was a part of me that like wants to be taken advantage of by a woman. And I think what that stems back to is my mind is so strong and controlling that the way that I will elevate more is if I learn to let go of this control and let go. And when that comes out in a sexual experience, it's like, well, I love being completely dominated because I don't have to think. and the thinking is like my overactive mind. So they're the two things that I've seen, and it's the two things that I've really been working on over the past few months. One, at the shame of which I have the mind control, like the control aspect, I'm still really working on, and I think that's going to take a little longer. But that's my experience, and anyone listening, I would challenge you to really take note and become aware of what you're attracted to. Does anyone else want to share a particular porn style, Alejandro?
Yeah, right now, as you were, thank you for sharing that because it's allowing me to process and think about the book, also Unwanted, which I'm also reading. And the dots that I'm connecting, I've always been intrigued by the pornography where the woman is satisfying you, where she's giving you a blowjob. That was always my go to, or controlling the woman, and so like doggy style. So I've always been very attracted to big butts, and so I'm just connecting that now myself as to feeling so powerless that with sex and this type of sex, that's the only way that I am able to feel power and control over another woman.
Yeah, for me, that's something that like the choice of porn, etc., is something that I've always been reticent to discuss openly. It's interesting, weird how these the paths you go to, at least for myself, it feels weird because there's stuff that I'm not necessarily attracted to, that I wouldn't be turned on by, especially in the past, and watching porn for years, and I've been off it for 2 years now or something. And it's more on the it ends up going towards like the violent side, towards kind of the controlling of the woman, like you were saying, Alejandro. And it's, you go onto any of these porn sites, there's violent stuff kind of just all over. It's not hard to, women gagging and stuff, gangbang stuff like this, that is not, I could imagine, probably what the woman is looking for. And for me, almost embarrassed and ashamed, definitely ashamed, guilt of being turned on by it. And it's something that I don't like. It's hard to admit it now. It's kind of why I think I'm being a little bit wordy here, because I'm not sure what to say or how to say it. And I'm in my head right now feeling judged, not by you guys, but just like, oh, people are going to hear this shit. Like, I don't want people to know what porn I've watched, but I'm sure we've all clicked on something similar, and it's violent, it's degrading towards the woman. You look at it, it's just how have I been conditioned so much that this is what turned me on, and this is what, allowed me to get there. And again, it's being in the head. It's just, I don't know, just being able to even say it out loud right now. I know I'm taking kind of the next step towards actually bringing that awareness up and healing it. Because for me, like I said, embarrassed to talk about it, feel shame and stuff, and being able to say this right now, I already feel it coming up. It's like, okay, this is, now that I'm bringing the awareness to it and actually verbalizing it, to our point at the start of this podcast, this is the awareness I really need to bring it and allow myself to truly work on it and feel those feelings I don't want to feel that shame and that guilt that porn brought up for years, that I ignored, that I said, oh, that's okay, everyone else watches this shit, so why the hell, why am I feeling a bad emotion from it? There must be something wrong with me. I just got to get back to it, do what everyone else is doing. But
good for you, Aaron. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a weird thing to talk about, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy we're doing this.
But it makes a lot of sense. I love diving into the reasons why you're watching what you're watching. In college and for years afterwards, I was watching Asian porn. So it was, I was very focused on Asians. It was all about being taken
Me
care
too.
of. And then they're they tear you apart in the bedroom. Like they're very and that stereotype stuck with me, and I was proud of it. Like actively saying that that's what I am and that's what I want. But it was based on a childhood wound of wanting to be taken care of and not ashamed. But working your way through this and seeing why these things happen is so interesting to dive into it. And you can hear with all of your shares, like these things are based on shame and not feeling like you don't have the ability or maybe even the resources to talk to people about this. Being ashamed to talk to it about your friends, your inner circle, your parents who You would hope you were able to share this with them and not be brushed aside or told like you're different, or why would you be into that, right? And types of things that you might be bringing up to them. Just on an end note for having a conversation with, so I have an 8-year-old child, and introducing him in this way, we're introducing him to books on like where a baby comes from, which covers sex, like parents having intercourse, and it covers not just for making a baby. So it's starting to lead into some other books which will have a healthier discussion as he gets older. So it's great to have these resources and talk to other people who are open and willing to have these discussions. They're out there. There are men who have done the work, or other families, if you have children that integrate this in healthy ways.
Amazing. And thanks for bringing that up about kids, because I don't have them, and I couldn't even imagine bringing up a kid right now with the world that we live in and how much like porn and like sex and just all of it is out there, and in my opinion, in not a very constructive way. Before we close, does anyone have any last remarks that they want to add?
I just wanted to add to what Chad said of being able to have a space where you're able to share this. If it wasn't for you three guys right now, I would not be sharing these stories with the world. But because I know that you guys have done this work, because I know you're part of the MSU team, I don't feel any fucking judgment from you guys. Not at all. Afterwards, once I realize that the podcast is going to be viewed by others, that's a whole nother story. But right now, like in the presence of you three wonderful fucking men, I feel incredibly safe. So just thank you guys. And I know, Danny, I think we're in the process of starting a group for men as well.
Yeah, we are starting a men's group. So if anyone's out there and listening, and they're interested in joining, please reach out to one of us. Jump onto MSU, massiveselfuniversity.com. I'll put the little banner up right now in case you missed that. We're all on Instagram. We're all on social media. If ever you just want to have like a little bit of a connect or a chat, feel free to message us. I know everyone feels the same. We're here to serve. We're here to elevate. We're here to help society grow out of these old toxic patterns and ways. So if you enjoyed this podcast, it's been extremely difficult for us all to say these things, to be this vulnerable. So thank you if you've made it this far for listening, and like, subscribe, do all the good things. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.